Harry, take full control. I shouted right before leaping out of the vehicle. I was fast as a human, but even faster in full transformation. With the reduction of my weight, the Lycanthrope took off at nearly twice the speed, easily gaining on the landboat. At first, I was running on two legs and being outpaced by my vehicle until I remembered I was a wolf and dropped down to all fours. When we were close enough, confirmed by my HUD, I leaped back onto my ride and instantly activated the blood tether skill, latching onto the shield of the first-place vehicle. I was thankful that it stuck and wasn't repelled. Having been struck once by an invisible weapon, I activated every eye power I had, and just in time too. Harry was in control, but being linked to my skills, when I activated them for me, I activated them for him, too. He jerked us to the left to avoid a vertical strike that would have split us into two. Using the blood tether, I sent the skill Winter's Grasp T5 R3 and watched as the shield began to ice over. After about a minute of actively channeling that skill, I then used in rapid succession Sunder, Meteor Strike, and Seismic Palm, which finally shattered their shield. Walls of mud and stone shot up in front of us, but Harry's AI brain was far too quick to be bothered with that trick and easily navigated the obstacles until they sprung into existence too quickly and at impossible angles to dodge. Switching to Plan C, I shouted to Harry over the rushing wind. "We had plans?" Harry shouted back. I ignored him, removed a mini fusion cannon, and imbued it with several skills. So anyway, I started blasting then. A few explosions behind us forced me to turn around and blast them, too. Really, I should have just led with this, because it was super effective. And then that's when I saw it. A pirate ship, complete with black sails, and steampunk piping running along the sides, trailing black smoke, shocked me. Harry, I think Blackbeard is not only in this competition, but he's gaining on us. Seriously? I thought he was your friend? Guess we'll see about that. We cleared the last of the obstacles, and I fired a perfect shot on the lead ship and took out its engines. We flew past them while taking the lead in this race. On the final curve, we drifted around. We watched the pirate ship also switch into a drift, revealing its side cannons. All 48 guns were fired multiple times in quick succession. So, no crew manual loading bummer. My fusion cannon couldn't deal with this many, so I stored it and switched to stance to prepare myself for physical force. However, my HUD came back with the trajectories and had all of them flying way over us. Is he trying to create a mountain of fire and debris in front of us? Our shields would easily cut through that. Then what is he doing? There was indeed an explosion in front of us, 3 in fact, as each massive cannon round bent and curved like homing rockets to 3 targets ahead of us. As the pirate ship closed the distance approaching us, I heard Blackbeard's booming voice clearly over the sounds of wind and fire. "Hey me, boy, you need to hone those senses of yours even more. You were actually in 4th place. Now go on and win this thing." I detransformed and gave the old pirate a salute. Then took control back from Harry and punched it. The last quarter mile wasn't easy due to the final wall defenses being the densest, but adrenaline, superhuman reactions, and a ton of skills pushing me beyond comprehension put me across the finish line in 1st place. Blackbeard hovered in upon a fog of mist in second. Parking our crafts and exiting, I met up with Blackbeard. "Why didn't you tell me you were joining?" "Oh, and thanks for the help. I wanted ye to be surprised. I ain't no care for ye 1st place. 2nd gets me a huge amount of tokens, and I guess it is time for me to move on. I'm curious about what comes next. You and me both, but for now, I plan on returning and continue to rise through the layers." "I believe you will. Good luck," he said and slapped me hard on the back. Despite all my strength and durability, he still knocked me forward a few steps and then laughed heartily at my fluster. A robot flew over with a screen display for a head. It spoke, but also displayed its words for me to read. "Congratulations on winning 1st place. Your reward awaits. Please follow me." A portal opened up, and it flew through. So, I bid farewell to Blackbeard and walked through the Terran space. On the other side, I was once again back in my blue ghost-like body, standing in a hall meant for a king. At the end of the grand hall sat a being of pure cosmic light on a throne made for giants. I didn't know what to do exactly, but I felt like stopping a bit distance away and bowing was the right thing to do. "Mortal, rise," said the voice that seemed to echo throughout the universe itself. "Congratulations on your win. I am the progenitor of this realm. You may call me Dan." If I wasn't dead, I would have lost control completely and laughed. Still, it was difficult, even with dampened emotions, not to burst right there. I was constructed to oversee the games and award those most deserving. You may now present your wish. Remember, there are a few things that are simply not possible, and should you waste it, it will be on you. I wish to go back to the first layer from which I died from the moment I died, and with all the skills and progress I've gained so far, along with whatever I can buy from the token shop. The laws of time cannot be reversed. However, they can bend. I can get you close to the time of which you died. Your request will be granted. After you make your purchases, you will be sent back. Goodbye, champion. With that, I was teleported to the token shop. A screen popped up with pages of things I could buy and the amounts required. I took my time going through everything and made my selections. I bought 4 things in total, but they were all of legendary quality. I grinned in satisfaction. One of my items required an editing phase to choose its design and colors. I went all out on pimping my new armor. When I arrived back on the first layer in a flash of light, I saw in slow motion a mage in Tokiki flying forward with a fist leading the way. I took a moment to look around, and upon seeing the remnants of my friends and the Lycaean army amidst hundreds of corpses of their allies, I quickly realized things had gone south. Then I noticed the body of Hiroshim missing his head. The trajectory of the Magen was aiming for Jackson, and I instantly reached out and caught his fist. The blow was incredibly powerful. I felt hairline fractures from the bones in my hand. Even with the superior armor and the boosts it gave me, I was still damaged slightly. No wonder everyone was having a hard time with this foe. I crushed that hand but let go when he tried to leap back. I could have held on, but I needed a moment to process everything. First, I felt for Violana's aura and found her alive and being healed. With a sigh of relief, I sought out each of the others who weren't immediately present and were thankful they were all alive despite their wounds. All but Hiroshim, that is. I knelt by his body and released Harry and Farah. Harry greeted everyone and gave instructions to clear out. The 2 S-rank Lycaeans were hesitant, but upon witnessing what happened to Hiroshim and then that same blow being stopped dead in its tracks moments later, they stepped back a few feet. Was Hiroshim's soul still in his body? His corpse felt very warm still. I used multiple healing skills to regrow his head and heal his wounds, but he didn't wake up. Next, I tried to shock his heart, but in the end. "Zeke, is that really you?" Jackson asked, despite seeing both Harry and Farah. My armor, which I named Lycan Nano Power Suit, was pitch black with wolf-like needle hair. Between the joints and plates was a green ethereal fire that resembled more of an aurora borealis than chaos fire. This same fire was seeping out of the eye sockets as well and gave me a dangerous appearance. The armor could retract into my arm when not in use, and I could, with the nanotechnology, lower the helm to let Jackson see my face, but I didn't want him to see my tears. When I spoke, the helm altered my voice, giving it a more electronic edge. "It is I. Now, take his body and flee the area. I will handle the rest of them." I looked back at the 3 remaining Magen Tokiki, the top of the Magen class, and realized that their city was now a burning wreckage in the background. If the Lycaean leader and the Monster King aren't here, then one of these 3 must be the new Monster King. Looking about the Sea of the Dead, I spotted hundreds of shiny objects, which I knew to be monster cores. That's right, only the quarter bodies remain when they die, the Magen turn to dust and leave behind loot. Korda also leaves loot, but you have to dig it out of them first. "You, Tokiki, you're number 2, right?" Bray then laughed, despite his sudden unease with the newcomer. I'm number one now that this guy became the new Monster King. You don't stand a chance. He was cut off by my fist, which exploded his head into a fine mist. I retreated several steps before anyone could even see my actions. I'm sorry, what was that? You didn't finish. I blinked away the notification I received for that kill and took in the other two. I knew Ryzen and his power, but doubted he was the next Monster King, which meant that other Magen was. I guess that makes you Ryzen number one and him the Monster King. Well, for the moment. Soul instantly activated his curse, but before he could do anything, his head exploded as well. Now, you're the Monster King Ryzen. Congratulations on the promotion. For now. You've grown in power and gained some new toys, I see. I wonder how that is, Ryzen finally spoke. Allow me to educate you. Your blessings are the polar opposite of our curses, but like your ranking system, we have similar ranks. He listed them off one by one from least to greatest. Weak, mild, severe, vengeful, wrathful, and then unholy. But I have transcended unholy to the soul realm. My true Tescata is the curse ability primordial force. Rank Evil 1, he shouted as he activated his curse. His body grew several feet. The pale complexion turned ashen gray as the black markings dripping down his eyes became a glowing, pulsating red color. Twin horns grew from his forehead and curved upward. Cool, 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 so just one. The look of confusion on his face meant he didn't understand. You see, the thing is, I have 3 blessings at the Soul 1 rank. He may have been a summoner before, but his curse was something else entirely. His physical attributes shot through the roof, but that damnable black energy that killed me the first time became a sword in each hand and was far more deadly than before. I felt my armor could stand up to it but wouldn't come out unscathed. Instead, I focused on the additional boosts my armor gave me, which pushed all my attributes into the godly realm. Astra King and Berserker gave me the stamina and flow of Astra to allow my perception and agility to avoid his dark matter energy swords, while Cyberlord calculated angles, arcs, trajectories, and a plethora of other variables. I pushed my body into an ebb and flow of the battle, but the size difference prohibited a decisive blow. I could tell he still took a lot of damage, but he, too, had incredible regenerative skills. I give it to you, Ryzen. You're far stronger than your allies were. But the only thing you have over me is height. Until now, I transformed with bones snapping and shifting into my full werewolf form. With a mighty roar, my new height of nearly 17 feet now rivaled Ryzen's. He'd seen this form before, but now, his eyes widened at the realization that I had transcended above him. He tried to flee, but I was there at every turn, blocking his path. Then, we engaged in the final clash of will and power. Redness started encroaching upon my vision. I hadn't been this mad in a long while. The rage fueling my hatred pushed my rage ability into phase 3. However, now being at the soul rank put my mind into a blind fury. I roared, charged, and woke up sometime later, covered in blood and gore. This feeling deep within my chest is now even greater than when this man first displayed his true form on the arena floor before my alpha. I knew then he was an alpha among alphas, but now, somehow, he's transcended to something far more frightening. I was in my full transformation, but the moment he unleashed that howl, I was forced out, and my knees buckled. I looked around and saw even his own team was on their knees, too. The thud in my chest was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst at any moment. Just who is this Zeke anyway? The two monsters clashed with each other, and it was easily apparent that the new Monster King was losing. He could only barely fend off the swath of attacks that left his body torn asunder, and despite his level of regeneration and calmer demeanor, it was evident that fear slowed his actions. Zeke took one good kick that sent him sprawling, but with unnatural agility, he righted himself and landed on all fours and instantly changed his momentum, then took off in a run at speeds defying all logic. I could hardly keep up with the afterimages, let alone the beast himself. Then, a new spray of blood would appear on the Monster King as he, too, attempted to keep up. At some point, a wounded Magian, not one of the elite, rose from the ground, apparently waking up, and found himself in the path of Zeke, and then he was a fine mist gently blowing in the breeze. I've never seen such brutality in so short of a period. Then I noticed that anybody, living or dead, would become shredded beef if it got between him and his target. I immediately found the strength to get to my feet and start howling and shouting orders for everyone on our side to retreat. Should any of us cross his path, it would be over in an instant. The one called Jackson was the first to respond to my calls, and then I saw something possibly even more frightening. The maniac was grinning at what he was seeing. But at least he was reasonable enough to understand the danger and started shoving people out of the battlefield. As I helped the last of our allies escape the field of death, Zeke's mate, our chief's daughter, suddenly appeared and tried to dash in to help, and I was completely blown away at how unaffected she was from the terrifying aura being blasted from Zeke. I now understood the true power of the fourth princess as she easily pushed past the feeling of dread and death. I used the last of my S-rank strength to get in front of her and try and restrain her. She fought me, but I was more durable than others of my clan. I was known for being the toughest on the front line since my skills and abilities put me into the shield class. Even so, I'm pretty sure she broke my nose with one of her elbows, but I was accustomed to pain and held my ground. Luckily, the one-sided massacre finally ended, and with one last howl, Zeke collapsed and detransformed back into his Kojin self, if he's even Kojin. Those travelers are something different normally, but after what I just saw, I'll call him whatever he wants. I let Violana go, and she rushed over to her husband. Then, all the adrenaline of the past several hours suddenly fled my body, and I collapsed hard. Medic! Jackson shouted, and another Lycaean healer ran forward to give aid to the S-ranker, who took charge after I went berserk. Even in my brain-addled mind, my senses were still extremely acute, and I became aware of everything around me. I struggled to say as I coughed up a little blood, what did I do? I didn't. No, you didn't kill any allies. But you gave me quite the scare. She started to cry. I heard you had died. She shouted. She was right, but I had no idea what to say. Without that soul ticket, I would be dead right now. I'm sorry. I know this isn't enough to make up for what happened, but if this counts for anything, you were the sole reason for my determination to conquer unfathomable challenges to get back to you. Well, that seemed to soothe her, because her reaction was to kiss me deeply. Then she made me promise to tell her everything later. For now, we had a lot of cleanup, rescuing anyone still alive, and seeing what was salvageable of their kingdom. I also took the rare and perhaps sorrowful opportunity to use the skill Aster consumption. It started as a rank 4 tier 1 skill, but over the years, and especially when we hunted tons of S-rank monsters, it had gone up 2 ranks. It was, for whatever reason, the slowest skill to rank. I hovered with my aura across the battlefield while constantly activating the skill and just soaked up the Astra. It's funny, but I almost forgot that Astra is actually Astrium. The natives simply shorten it for ease of use. Even Harry shortens it for my system messages. Speaking of which, when I got a moment to rest, I unleashed the torrent of notifications built up in my HUD. A greeting, am I right? Notice. The conditions have been met. You have successfully returned to life from a true death. You have been granted a new title. New title gained, the Risen. The Risen has granted you 200 Astra. And a new skill. New skill gained, the Chosen Ticket S5 R1. Description, should you experience a true death again, this skill will activate automatically. Notice. The conditions have been met. You have successfully killed a monster king. You have been granted a new title. New title gained, King Killer X2. King Killer X2 grants you 1000 Astra. And a new skill. New skill, Overkill S7 R1. Description, when defeating greater foes multiple times, your damage output is increased by 10%. This is a passive skill. Notice. The conditions have been met. You have successfully killed a monster king. You have been granted a new title. New title gained, King Killer X3. King Killer X3 grants you 2000 Astra. And a new skill. New skill, Tyrant S8 R1. Description: any enemy under your soul rank will be intimidated. Intimidated debuff. Lowers defenses by 50%. I had to pause the notifications after those first few, there was so much to unpack. Aside from the massive gains of 3.2k Astra, I've gained some rather peculiar skills, plus at what I assume are the soul ranks. I'm safely going to say I'm beyond the expected S+ ranks. But wait, there's more. Notice. The conditions have been met. You have successfully reached the soul ranks of your abilities before reaching Layer 2. New title gained, Overachiever. Overachiever grants you 2000 Astra. And a new skill. New skill, Magnify Damage S2 R1. Description: all damage is increased by 20% passively. I'm trying to keep up with my gains, and so far, I'm looking at around 5.2k. I need to see the rest of these notifications before I access my status sheet and see what exactly is going on. Notice. The skill, Astra consumption, was successful. You have drained 9,836 Astra from the corpses. Your soul rank has risen to Soul 2 for all your abilities. Oh, wow, my jaw has officially dropped. This was probably the single greatest upgrade I've ever been given. Aside from the Astra alone, the fact that all my soul rank 1 abilities were now rank 2 would have to mean I'm on a very good start for the second layer. That brings to mind that I'm going to have a very uncomfortable conversation with my team because I need to move on, and I don't believe the rest of my team is ready for that. I built a life here, gotten married, and need to help rebuild this empire. But I know deep within me that I need to see what is next. It is a driving force within me. I still want revenge for my past life, but with everything that has occurred since then, that need for revenge is but a flickering flame on the verge of being snuffed out. The only thing holding me onto that flame is my brother's death. Although I feel forgiven, there's this twinge of anger over what transpired. Can I fully commit to moving on? Only time will tell. Now, for the next onslaught of notifications. Notice. You have defeated. You have defeated. You have defeated. Your Astra has risen a total of 4,354. I pulled up my status sheet to see the total gains. Status sheet. Name, Ezekiel Connery. Titles. Skills. Items. Race, human. Undying. Aura Sense T8 R4. Momentum Change T9 R3. Combat Prosthetic Arm. Rank, Platinum. Monster Slayer. Danger Sense T9 R5. Sunder T8 R5. Dimensional Ring. Aura, Gold. Nexus Slayer. Cleaning T8 R5. Meteor Strike T7 R5. Astra Power Level, 19,390. Skydiver. Conceal T5 R4. Burst Step T9 R5. Blessings. Scarred Soul. Rune Crafting T7 R1. Lifesteal T9 R4. Soul 2 Cyberlord. The Risen. Rune Forging T7 R3. Momentum Strike T8 R1. AI Controller. King Killer X2. Rune Tech T6 R3. Necrotic Strike T7 R3. Harry, A. Nuss. King Killer X3. Skill Boost T9 R5. Seismic Palm T8 R5. Pain Suppressor. Overachiever. Thought Acceleration T9 R5. Resist Charm T6 R1. Appraiser's Oculus. Racial Traits. Acceleration T9 R4. Dual Mind T9 R5. HUD. Godly Hearing. Barrier T9 R2. Land Upright T8 R4. Fission Engine. Godly Olfactory. Healing T9 R4. Necrotic Resistance T6 R4. Communications Chip. Night Vision. Aster Consumption T6 R5. Soul Ticket T9 R1. Soul 2 Aster King. Were Transformation. Mend Wound T9 R4. Raged Fist T8 R2. Way of the Astra. Partial Transformation. Chaos Flames T9 R5. Sonic Speed T8 R3. Increase Skill Chance. Godly Strength. Tame T3 R1. Winter's Grasp T5 R3. Soul Eyes. Venomous Bite. Heal Familiar T5 R4. Blood Raven Swarm T7 R3. Soul 2 Berserker. Venomous Claws. Last Chance T8 R2. Taunting Shout T4 R3. Rage. Regeneration. Passive Healing T9 R5. Blood Tether T6 R2. Tough Body. Godly Durability. Toxin Resistance T5 R3. Mask Aura T8 R3. Stamina Steel. False Data T7 R4. The Chosen Ticket S5 R1. Cooling Shield T7 R2. Overkill S7 R1. Rain Shield T4 R3. Tyrant S8 R1. Stone Skin T9 R5. Magnify Damage S2 R1. I honestly sat there stunned for quite a while. I not only surpassed the S+ rank, but I shattered it by miles. This was completely unreal, and I didn't know how to process it. My body felt so incredibly powerful. You know how they say superheroes have to hold back, otherwise, they might break everything around them? That was how I was feeling at this very moment. If I even empowered my physical strength a little bit with this amount of Astra, I fear the amount of damage I might be able to cause. But, while I have plenty more to dive into, I've taken too much time to rest, and there is plenty of work left to be done. It's a good thing I don't need to sleep. After all, I slept plenty when I was dead. Clearing debris and rescuing the wounded was slow-moving, but eventually, we made headway into the enemy's city and discovered the Lycanthrope king bound with a collar around his neck and 2 mages standing guard. I was seriously exhausted, not so much within my body, but within my soul. Aside from still getting used to the new soul ranks for my blessings, I had strained my soul a lot recently. Hell, I even played a torture game using my soul. Yet, I kept my attacks to only physical ones, and easily cut down the 2 mages in less than a second. Notice. The conditions have been met. Everyone who participated in the event will receive this title. New title gained, Magen Genocide. Magen Genocide grants 3000 Astra. And a new skill. New skill gained, Enlightenment S1 R1. Description: when meditating you will gain increased Astra, health, and stamina. Regeneration by 500% and have a small chance to become enlightened. Enlightened state grants insight into blessing and skill evolution. You can gain multiple ranks or even upgrade the blessing or skill to a superior new skill. I read the forced notice pop up, and my eyes grew wide. It's one thing for me to gain so many upgrades at once. I'm a bit of an oddity. But all the survivors instantly gaining that much Astra? At least the surviving Lycaons will at least stay strong enough to hold their own while they rebuild. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the others all with their eyes closed, clearly listening to the world voice. Putting that aside for the moment, I went over to the king, my new father-in-law, and tore the suppression collar off. "Are you okay, sir?" "Yes, a little bruised still, but I'm regenerating." "So, we did it? We really won?" "How?" "Long story, but we got a lot of work to do rebuilding your kingdom." "Come on, we'll talk more later." After clearing the wreckage as good as they could for the day, the deceased bodies were collected, and a massive funeral took place. One by one, my party members and I took our turn honoring Hiroshima by placing a flower on his body before they set the pyres ablaze. We spent the next 2 months helping the reconstruction efforts. They even asked me to supply the bulk of the Astra for their spells to raise the mountain back up again. All I had to do was channel my Astra through a ritual diagram that then transferred the power into their spells. There were many supplying Astra, but I had the most by far to aid their project. Despite all the time we spent in this place, the uncomfortable discussion didn't take place until it was time to head home. Of course, we were given a ceremony and going away party before then, but eventually, I knew it was time. Alright, everyone, I feel it is time to discuss our future, I started off the conversation. We were at our battle airship on our way home. I don't know about you, Zeke, but I plan on heading to the boat off this rock, Akoth said. Yes, about that. I, too, will be heading to the boat. We've leveled past this land, and I desire to see what comes next. What about the rest of you? You don't even have to ask me, Violana replied. I'm with you forever. Same, but not in the same meaning as Vel, Jackson said. Then Telvern replied, well, I, for one, have been awarded by your father and have been granted freedom. However, I do not seek to move on from this place. I wish to retire for a bit. I can understand that, I replied to him. Then I had an idea. Telvern, we've been at odds with each other from time to time, but I consider you family. With that said, will you take over my part of the ownership of the restaurants? He opened his mouth and then paused for a bit. Ah, yes. I would gracefully accept. Thank you, Telvern replied while visions of delicious burgers floated through his mind. Then, the gazes turned to Toby, Kaelin, and Zara. All three looked at each other, and then Kaelin spoke up for the three of them. Yes, well, we've discussed this already among ourselves, and we, too, wish to stay here. We wish to start families and raise children for a while. Maybe down the road, we'll cross the boat, but we've had enough adventure for several lifetimes, far more than we ever dreamed. That is understandable. We'll miss you for sure, but despite all we've gone through, I know you're still young and need time to explore life in other venues outside combat. I know you'll all make great parents one day. And what I said was true. They were still young and needed to grow in other ways before deciding to move to new and harsher challenges. And from my time in the Soul Realm, the upper layers get tremendously more difficult. When we arrived home, I rebroke my bed in with Violana, then made my way down to my forge. There, I found Jackson already hard at work upgrading items. I gave him a nod and made my way to my station. I took out another of the 4 legendary items I received from the Soul Realm and placed it on the table. Item, Soul Battery. Description, a superior source of power, greater than any monster. Core found on the first 5 layers. It can also boost soul blessings, soul skills, and soul arts of anyone within aura range by 20%. I ejected my ultimate monster core and then carefully removed the fission reactor from within my combat prosthetic. The residual energy within the nanobots allowed the arm to remain functional for a time. Previously, the fission reactor would power the arm, but then when I added the more powerful monster core, I rigged it with runes to utilize the fission reactor to refuel the monster core, kind of like an alternator in a car. Now, however, I was replacing the monster core with the soul battery, which required no such need for an alternator. It didn't take long to modify my arm to accept the new power source. Nanoites were remarkably adaptable, especially with a living sapience named Harry guiding the process. The next project was to remove my failsafe self-destruct fission bomb and modify it with a more powerful fission reactor and a monster core of the ultimate classification. The base damage of this bomb took out half a lake along with a bandit camp, which killed several B and A rank monsters in the process. This new modification would bring the level of devastation to such a degree that even I might not be able to withstand the explosion, much less than the city or even an entire mountain. Nearly everything would be turned to fire and ash within dozens of miles away. Why do I want such stupidly powerful weapons? I'm American. Hey, Zeke, come give me a hand on this, will ya? Jackson called out. I left Harry in his floating body to continue the modifications and walked over to Jackson. What's up? He had his 4 arms from the backside of his armor aiding him with his work, so I couldn't see him really needing an extra pair of hands, but then I saw what he was working on. Is that? Yes, it's my new Gatling gun creation. Well, to be more exact, it is a new weapons armament system utilizing your nanotechnology. This baby can morph into any weapon of my choice. With a mere thought. The real issue is the rune technology merging with nanite technology. Each form has to rearrange the nanites to reform new rune pathways. I can manage it, but what I'm really having trouble with is creating a brand new rune for allowing a rune shift. As you know, runes are both specially arranged pathways to harness the power, and special engravings on the monster cores. This setup requires at least 16 rare cores to function correctly. However, aside from spacing issues, I can't seem to figure out how to move the correct rune into place while still being able to protect them. Obviously, having one crack and explode during use wouldn't be great at all. I nodded at his explanation thus far. I know we can shift bullets from dimensional storage to the weapons, but those runes are not working for shifting other runes. The aura signatures interfere with each other. Now, obviously, I can create a revolver of sorts to manually move the runes into place. However, it interferes with most of the weapon designs. Any suggestions? I gave it some thought. Naturally, the way we shift bullets is that the rune magic is linked to the material object, in this case, a clip with a serial number. Every time we reload, the next in line is shifted into the magazine, while the empty clip is shifted back to our storage ring. During the first few years, we simply hand-loaded each empty clip when we had the time, especially since it required us to refill them with our various forms of magical fire. But then Jackson came up with a way to auto-reload the empty clips, and then we just had to imbue our magic into each batch of clips all at once, which sped up the process a bit. But we couldn't link one rune to another rune for shifting because those runes already had engravings on them. Adding a linking engraving would nullify the original engravings or cause unknown cataphoric failures. So, it seemed simple enough to me. He needs to create an encasing around each rune that would have the linking magic engraved, and then he'd have to redesign the base chamber to accept the encased rune instead of just a rune by itself. I relayed my thoughts, and his eyes widened at the simple solution. Remember this acronym, KISS. It's rather silly, but it stands for Keep It Simple Stupid. Huh? What does that mean? It means you're stupid if you try and overthink or over-engineer something when a more simple solution is often best. So, you're calling me stupid? No, that's just the saying. A saying that you said. Well, yes, but. So, you think I'm stupid then? Because I have, you know. Okay, never mind, you missed the point. I'm just saying that I'm stupid since now I can't even understand the point. Ugh, I groaned. The 4 of us, remaining on our little team, drove to the northernmost mountain, which blocked the way to the boat. Upon arriving, we were shocked to see 2 major things. Okay, one of us was shocked because the others were born here and had heard about the mountain, which was closer to a wall. In general, it had the shape of a mountain at the peak, which was incredibly high, but the face of the mountain was a solid, slick wall. This was no mountain. It was an artificial barrier. The second thing we saw was one of those giant monsters that eat skyscraper-like treetops attempting to climb this wall. Even with its massive strength, it was angrily growling because it couldn't punch holes into the wall to use to climb with. How the hell did a troglodyte get this deep into the Northern Territories without being reported? Jackson asked. It is a small chance, but it could have spawned here, Violana responded. Humph. Let's just kill it already, Akos stated. And how do you propose to do that? Jackson questioned. This thing is larger than any quarter known in existence and nigh impenetrable. That may have been with normal levels of Astra, but we all know we're far higher than any being before us. At least, I'm guessing we are. I wasn't too knowledgeable on all the past divine blessing users, but just from my personal experience with some of the strongest S+ rankers and their total asterisk compared to ours now, I felt somewhat confident in my words. So, we should be able to kill this thing and then figure out how to scale this barrier. Scaling the barrier will be tricky. For starters, there is a sign that explains the unique requirements to beat this challenge. However, all those who have beaten it never had the chance to pass on that knowledge because they left this layer of existence, Jackson stated. All that comes later. For now, we kill this monster. And my suggestion is to just take out the legs and topple it, then it'll be easier to bash in the head, Akoth gave his battle suggestion. I'm honestly okay with that plan, I said. Dialana and Jackson moved far back, approximately where they thought the head would be when it fell over, while Akoth and I took one leg each and began our race to see who could topple this thing the quickest. Newsflash, I won. I activated every single skill and ability that could be channeled through a massive hammer scythe, pumped as much Astra as my muscles could allow, enhancing my strength, and then spun several times to build up momentum before striking the giant foot on the heel. The foot the size of a hotel was nearly vaporized from the force of the blow. Only the toes on the front shot out like rockets, which ricocheted off the smooth wall like bullets on steel. The anguished cry from the monstrosity caused a windstorm that nearly blew us all away as it started to fall to one knee, only for another wail to cry out as Akoth shattered the other foot into chunks of molten rocks. Now, the creature was tumbling backward with arms flailing, and our other two companions had to judge the fall and dodge at the last moment to avoid being struck. Then, they got to work on destroying the head, which was surprisingly easy. Yeah, I'd say we've grown in power. We truly have no more threats to overcome on this layer. What a journey it has been, I sighed with relief. Going from scared out of my wits human on the run from monsters, to defeating them with ease that seemed like a mountain I would never be able to cross. Yet here I was, ready to scale yet another mountain, to challenge even greater heights. What is this? Am I feeling nostalgic already? Whatever, I'm moving on. Surprisingly, we did not get a world-first kill notification, but we all got something ranked up due to the amount of achievements such a monster was worth. Then, right on time, Razakilian, the thief ratkin from so long ago, who tried to steal a necklace from me for Violana, appeared. Master Zeke, this one has brought you the item as per our arrangement. After this, I am free, yes? The ratkin looked hopeful as he should, considering the meeting location was at the edge of the world that led to another layer. All three of my companions had immediately jumped into high alert with weapons drawn when the ratkin made his presence known. Which is funny, because our Astra was so much higher than Razakilian's, but it was a good reminder that even low-grade skills can still surprise us. Yes, Razakilian. With this item, your debt is cleared with me. Take care and remember, do not underestimate those you steal from. Because they might not be as forgiving as myself. With that, I took hold of the bottle he handed to me, Old Rip Van Winkle 25-year-old bourbon whiskey. Well, to be more precise, a magically created simulation of that bourbon based on what Harry could provide for the recipe. As it turns out, alcohol production wasn't being spearheaded by my restaurant business. Once a competitor got a hold of one of our recipes, they started experimenting at a rapid pace. Magic can really do wonders when someone suddenly realizes what is possible and has the tenacity to seize hold of the opportunity. I could have dropped the ban hammer on them, but why? If they could advance certain recipes, even with the occasional hints from Harry, then why not let them create everything I desired but in my old life never got to enjoy? Look, I had money. I was a rather successful mercenary under a government contract, but while certain combat prosthetics were the perk for joining, maintaining that gear was expensive. It was one of the many ways they kept us in line. Obviously, the medicine to control our transformations was the other method of control. Restrictive code, serum, and cost of maintenance all were the chains around our necks. Being summoned to this world despite the disruption to my goal of revenge might not have been the freedom from their control that I had sought, but it turned out to be what I truly wanted. Also, I had the ratkin steal it because if you're going to have a thief in your pocket, you should use him as a thief. Screw those businesses, we helped develop this fine bottle. I'm not getting any royalties off it. Standing here now, before the final hurdle of our journey, I was reminded of all I've lost as well as all I've gained. Seeing Violana was enough to move forward, but also seeing my best friend Jackson as well as my rival/friend, Akoth, I felt a rather peace about this new transition even though other members of our family were missing. So, I gave a toast while summoning 4 glasses. Then, seeing Raza Killian still standing there and Harry exiting my arm, I summoned 2 more. I have no idea if Harry could drink, but he seemed keen on participating. I raised my glass and began, "May your troubles be less, and your blessings be more. And nothing but happiness comes through the front door." I gave a wink at Violana. "To all the days here and after, may they be filled with fond memories, drunkenness, and monster slaughter. I pray that the best day of your past is the worst day of your future. Perhaps not in a stupor, but definitely smoother than this bourbon. For strength and power are through tribulation, and nothing lost is ever a stipulation. Because life is about living without regretting the troubles of our past. Cheers." We all lifted the bottom of our glasses to the sky, some more than others, and gave satisfying sighs afterward. Harry actually drank the liquid and also gave an electronic sigh as well. "This new sensory chip is a wonderful miracle." He chirped and then began to weep back and forth. "And so is the new digestive chip. Alright people. Let's get this journey done," I said. "And Harry, get back in my arm, you fool." My intent was to walk up to the wall and touch it, but as soon as I approached within 30 feet of the wall, I felt something change. It was a tingly feeling, but despite Harry's condition, he was quick to give me the World Voice System message prompt. "Notice. This zone restricts all use of abilities, skills, and artifacts. Only soul arts and aura abilities are allowed. To proceed, you must be able to scale this wall. Good luck." A long string of expletives escaped my lips upon reading that, and I was a little ashamed. Not that much, though. Still, this is ridiculous. Yet the others, confused by my outburst, also approached and got their version of the World Voice System message. "I once punched someone into the invisible barrier, so you'd think I could jump this, but for some reason, the height of this mountain seemed to nearly triple the height of the world's dome. Could this part of the barrier simply be higher? Like it really isn't a perfect dome shape." I gave my best effort for a mighty leap and got about a third of the way up before I came crashing back down. The others were not impressed by the dirt storm I kicked up. "Well, any ideas?" Zeke. "Perhaps we should, I don't know, try one of the 2 things the sign says we can still use?" Jackson gave me lip while continuing to brush dirt off his clothes. "He has a good point," Violana responded, "but how do we go about doing it? Maybe we can use the body-soul art to cut handhelds into this rock?" Jackson asked. "I doubt it. We're strong, but so was that monster, and it left no scratches. Also, unless this thing heals itself, I see 0 blemishes of any kind to it," I replied. I decided to review the 3 soul arts to see if anything might be of use. Mind. Isentori. Is the mind art that has 3 states of mind. States. First. Sight. Allows the user to do spiritual things. Second. Thought. Governs the ability to control our bodies. Third. Integration. The 3rd state of mind is called integration. Body. Bokurai. Is the body art that has 3 conditions. Conditions. First. Fortification. Allows the user to fortify the ground or even the air to align with their body, which grants stable footing to reduce equal and opposite forces. Second. Density manipulation. Gives the user the ability to alter their density. Third. Transference. Is the ability to utilize either fortification or density manipulation at will, but has a greater stamina cost. Weapon. Sarageti. Also known as the soul weapon, has 3 stages of release. Each release form has its own special name unique to the user. Stages. First. Release Form 1. Summons the soul weapon. Second. Release Form 2. Transforms the weapon into a greater form with new powers. Third. Release Form 3. Full body transformation with the weapon that grants massive body enhancements. And new powers. I was thinking of fortification with density manipulation, but you can only do one or the other. Transference allows you to switch quickly between each condition but not really use them at the same time. Plus, while fortification could somewhat bond you to the ground or surface in order to strengthen the foundation, it doesn't actually let you stick to that surface for long. Just like the dice manipulation game, it can allow for a quick bounce even off of air molecules, but it couldn't sustain a die in midair for any length of time. As we were all contemplating our options, we suddenly felt a gust of wind as Akoth began to manipulate his aura around him like a tornado to lift him off the ground. He managed to sustain himself about 20 feet off the ground but found it difficult to rise any further. Then that gave me an idea. "Nice job, Akoth," Jackson yelled. "Care to explain how you did that?" Stepping outside of the no blessing and skill zone, I used aura sense and watched how he manipulated his aura to grant a form of flight. I then replicated what he was doing and adjusted here and there for what felt natural. Then I used Bokurai's second condition, density manipulation, and reduced my density, and well, I soared. I was flying through the skies at great speed. At first, it was a little wobbly, but adjusting my aura to form wings and thrust, I almost pulled off a Superman style of flight. The landing was more kin to a person with a jet pack and those arm jets to control position, but I managed a graceful enough landing to keep my dignity intact and explain what I did to everyone else. Adorable Violana. She managed to flip twice upside down before launching herself headfirst into the dirt. She was so angry that she actually tried to eat the unbreakable wall. I healed her chipped tooth and softly coached her through the process. I would have healed my jaw, but my natural regeneration took care of that. Why do I always get involved with the dangerous ones? I think the first shower we took was the first red flag. Eventually, we were all soaring through the skies and having a great time, too. It took some practice, sure, but the fun we were having almost made us forget that we had a mountain to scale. Taking a small break on the ground to replenish our Astra for a few of us anyway, we decided to also eat some good cheeseburgers before seeing what was in store for us. The moment we were all ready to go, it hit us like a tidal wave. The anticipation and even fear of the unknown were heavy within our auras. Sure, we were also excited, but that part of us was a lot smaller than I would have liked. Even Akoth, with his stoic face, left traces of trepidation in his aura. Right, no more stalling. Let's get this done. Alright, everyone, see you at the top. The last one smells like a rotten egg, I said, grinning, and took off. The others reluctantly followed quickly behind. What the actual I had to bite my tongue. How did Violana beat me to the top? She gave me a smug grin and then pushed me back off the mountain. I quickly re-engaged flight to land safely again, but wow, was I super annoyed. The worst of us beat all of us. This world is so unfair. Despite the edges of the wall being jagged to give the appearance of a mountain in the distance, it was, in fact, a wall with a smooth floor before another drop-off down to the beach on the other side. Looking down was not so easy, as the distance plus the clouds made it impossible to see the bottom. What was worse was the fact that there was another sign that said, "Notice. The use of aura and soul arts are now prohibited. Make it down on your strength alone. If you succeed, you will be allowed to proceed. Also as per usual, no skills, spells, or abilities are permitted during the descent." Okay, as Jackson pointed out before, I need to read and understand the sign and then decide what to do. I don't suppose understanding why this was a physical sign and not a system message would help me at all, would it? Probably not, and thankfully, I restrained my initial outburst of unsavory language. However, none of my party members, including Jackson, remembered that sage advice, as they collectively responded with that exact sentiment. Now, I knew I had a skill that allowed me to not only land upright but also nullify any damage taken afterward for 10 seconds. However, I had a feeling none of that would matter. However, what did matter was the fact that I got that skill by first leaping of a sky city and surviving the fall solely based on my strength and durability. And to be honest, I was magnitudes more powerful now than then. So, should all my party members. However, I did notice one thing about the sign. Okay, everyone, please remain calm. I then explained how I gained the skydiver title and the corresponding skill because of it. I also related my relative strength then compared to where we all were now. But I dropped the real bombshell when I activated a skill right there on top of this wall. Yes, our skills and abilities could be used now, before our descent downward. I cast Barrier, Healing, Mend Wound, Passive Healing, and Stone Skin on everyone since it would allow the skill to run over time. Things like momentum change were an instant skill and wouldn't help when we needed it. Seeing the realization of what we could do, everyone else also cast their skills or spells that would further help them or the party in surviving the fall. Then, with a final nod to everyone, I walked up to the ledge, turned around to face them, spread my arms, and fell backward with a smile on my face. Surprisingly, Dialana beat Akov by a small margin, with Jackson's crazy grin coming in last with guns drawn, for I have no idea why. I was confident in my survival based on the last time, but skydiving without a parachute always instills an instinctual fear within one's soul. However, I knew I had magic on my side as well as a stupidity-enhanced body. Still, if I woke up at the pearly gates, I could at least say the journey was quick. Or so I hoped. I mean, I could still die but be in agony for a while. Okay, let's think positively. I've never been a pessimist. Only a realist. And realistically, I give it 90-10. As I passed through the clouds and saw the ground, I thought, 85-15. However, the closer the ground came, those numbers started to plummet. Geez, guys, were you worried? Please. I created such a crater that my fellow party members were caught up in the blast, which further slowed their descent before they, too, crashed into the sand with a slightly reduced impact than my own. Still, we all lay there in agonizing pain while our bodies sorted themselves out. Eventually, the groans died out, and we slowly rose to our feet. Finding we could once again utilize all our abilities and skills, we cast cleaning and more rejuvenating effects before we turned our gaze to the boat. The boat looked large enough for a small yacht but in the style of an old-school sailboat. We boarded the boat and discovered no crew, no electronics, and no runic magic. Yet, once we were all boarded, the sails unfurled on their own. Then, within minutes, we took off for the edge of the world and through the fog. What we saw on the other side blew all of our minds. We were in some kind of wormhole, clearly traveling at speeds near or greater than the speed of light. The wormhole was translucent, and while we could see a few stars here and there, but not what one would normally see when looking up at the night sky from any other normal world and not the strange artificial worlds that made the layers. What made us gasp, however, were the strange creatures that blew past us as we traveled. They seemed wholly alien but swam through the empty void as if it were water. A few were even keeping pace with us as if they sensed a tasty meal, but they couldn't break through the wormhole tunnel. Sometime later, we began to slow, and then we passed through a barrier of sorts. It was mostly invisible, but in the way that glass was, we could see it, but barely. However, now that we weren't moving so rapidly, we could actually see a second lane, which we assumed was the return lane. The barrier on that side was coated in splatters of blood. Now we knew why everyone who left on the boat never returned. If you tried, the one-way barrier stopped you permanently. Shortly after that disturbing experience, we saw another thick fog ahead, and as we passed through, another beach became visible. This one was far fancier than the last since it included a dock, a check-in station, and what appeared to be a bar. We disembarked the boat and immediately felt immense pressure on our bodies. It wasn't like it made any of us struggle much due to our formidable strength and durability, but it was very noticeable. It might even slow us down a bit. Harry, where is this pressure coming from? That would be the gravity, dumb. I estimate it is roughly 20 times stronger than Dryotis. I know that you know the precise number, why use the term roughly? Don't tell me you're trying to sound more human. A dumb human? He gagged and then stuttered. Of course not, numbskull. I've just been badly infected by your idiocracy. I must purge myself during the next charging cycle, while exiting my arm only to have to fire his jets in a poor attempt to counter the gravity. At the beginning of the dock, we were greeted by a peculiar creature. It wasn't large, maybe around 4 feet tall, but it had a stiff trunk-like mouth, 3 eyes, and a fury head that took up most of its height. Its legs were maybe a foot long at best. I didn't see arms or wings. Greetings, it looked down, and suddenly a screen appeared in front of it. Oh, right, Kojin. My name is Gekchkak, but you may call me Jack. Please step over to our local refreshments and take a load off. I'm sure you've had a long journey to get here. We made our way to the bar and took a seat. We ordered some drinks, but we had no idea what was in them and then turned to Jake to let him continue. I am the welcoming guide to the second layer for your people. If you look along the beach, you may notice many more docks. These are entry points for 6 other first layer worlds, for a total of 7. These 7 species make up the Azure Coalition. There are 3 coalitions on this layer, each with 7 species. That is a lot of species. I've never met any other species other than Zeke, Jackson stated. Jake, our guide, looked puzzled but continued, okay, well, I won't get into each of the species for the other coalitions. I'll just give you this pamphlet. A pamphlet floated over to each of us. But our species are the Kojin, Zabine, Totoke, Yasus, Tobnob, which is what I am. Then we have the Elfian, and finally, the Aquariarians. This is exciting, Violana said. New species to learn about. Huh. Just more weaklings to get in our way, Akoth scoffed while crossing his arms and looking away like he was striking a pose. So dramatic. I rolled my eyes. Anyway, Jake spoke again, our territory consists of 1 major city where everyone works together for commerce and entertainment. Then, we have a dedicated guild for hunting and advancing. Outside the city, we have residential areas set up for each specific race since most people prefer to stick to their own kind for living habitats. However, there is 1 district for those that have crossed-mingled. That makes sense, I said. Right. Well, aside from that, we do have a shared collective set of rules for conduct within the city. Each separate living district may have its own special rules, which are all detailed in your pamphlets, and it would be wise to learn these rules. We do not imprison people here. We just kill them. That was harsh, but made sense. It was similar back on the first layer, but some cities did have a form of prison. But the entirety of this place has decided it isn't worth trying. I guess that's what happens when so many different types of powers come into play. How do you safeguard against them all? And trust me, Jake continued, without these rules, we might end up like the Scalian Coalition, which is full of backstabbing and infighting. Hell, they've had more wars with themselves than us. But if you think that's bad, just be glad you didn't arrive in the Tarian Coalition. Those humans, he shuddered at that, are downright evil. They subjugated 3 of their neighbor races, forced 2 of them into being partners in their crimes, and exiled the 1 race that is actually good but couldn't be conquered. What? Humans? I had to ask, what was the first layer from which they came? I so hoped he didn't say Earth. However, I just can't see it. My planet isn't a flat world, despite many foolish claims. Plus, there just couldn't be enough time for them to make it to the second layer and then conquer their neighbors. Still, I wasn't 100% positive about how time worked within the layers. Jake took a moment to reference his data on his system window screen. Ah, yes, here it is. They are from a world called Cobol. No way. I thought. How could that be? Or is it just a coincidence? Imagine that a human made it from Cobol, then blended in with other humans on Earth and told a sci-fi story. Nah, unbelievable. But I am glad it isn't Earth. However, it is disturbing to think that humans, even from another world, would end up doing what my people probably would have done. Ah, and how did they conquer their neighbors? I asked. Oh, well, that is simple. Unlike every other species that comes here, which is in small groups like yours, humans travel in mass numbers. They have this thing called a military. Honestly, we don't know much since security is very tight. However, we learn what we can from captive groups we integrate over the thousands of years we've been here. But what we do know is that they have highly trained elites that rival our best hunters, but then they have thousands of troops that are all incredibly powerful as well. Just for comparison, our 7 species combined only has 3,425, 9, now. Their side has tens of thousands. And that is just the humans. Jake looked down in a saddened state. I see. That is terrible. Yeah, why didn't we do that? Jackson asked. And drag along more useless people with us? If they aren't strong enough to get over that mountain, they don't belong there, Akoth rebutted. Anyway, I interrupted, what can you tell us about the layers? How many are there? How do you travel to the next one? What amount of Astra does everyone have on average? Oh, well, you have a lot to learn, Jake replied. First of all, your layer was vastly different from all the other layers. Well, maybe not all. But not every species has Astra. Some of us have mana, or spirits, or death energy. My species uses psychic energy. Also, not all species have skills and spells. Some use modulation, manipulation, or even kinesis, like my race. But the things we have in common are blessings and abilities. However, you'll quickly find that we each have a different name for them. But they do work the exact same. Even the rankings are equivalent. Also, as you can see, I have what is called a system. It appears in front of me like this. But you know this system as the world voice. Others have similar systems, the world voice, and even stranger things like scribes or fairies. We believe the system translates the best for each kind of species based on their unique physical properties or societal traits. Whoa, that is a tremendous difference from what we knew. Even his system was different than mine. No one else could see what I saw. There was so much information, and news about humans really hit home. Since I didn't say anything out loud, my friends didn't mention it either, but they all gave me side glances. I always thought that one day, I might make it home and possibly bring them with me. But the truth is, humans would do everything in their power to capture or kill them. I mean, it would laughably fail, but it wouldn't leave a good impression. But now, they are seeing that I might just be the only exception to the rule. I understand you all have many questions, but we have a presentation video for you all to watch, and yes, I know you probably don't know what that is. We know what that is, Jackson replied. Then he activated a video Harry gave him of his favorite movie, RoboCop. Things have changed a bit in our world than the last time you got people from there. Oh, I see. Very good then. Come this way, Jake responded and then turned and floated off. He had legs, but now I could see them being too small to really transport such a massively large head. We followed into a theater of sorts and began to watch the history of the second layer as well as the differences between the species. I found it fascinating. Akoth fell asleep and started to snore. Later, we had a tour of the city and were escorted to the Kojin district and handed over to them. To be honest, they felt powerful, but not stronger than me. However, that was just the ones on guard. I'm sure we'd find far more powerful people when we check into the guild tomorrow. During the presentation, we learned a lot about this new layer. First of all, there were no intelligent monsters. But the ones that did spawn were vastly more powerful than the first layer. Also, this layer was circular in shape with 3 primary territories for the coalitions taking of 3 of the coastlines. A massive mountain range separated us on each side that then stretched inland to form a circle around the very center of the layer. There inside the circle was a lone tower with 100 levels. The tower was the size of a large city back on Earth, and the gateway to the 3rd layer was at the very top. Outside the tower was a large battlefield where each coalition often clashed. The reason was that the gateway only opened every 6 years. We had a little over 4 years till that day now. Every side had sufficient time to train and level to want to cross over, but only one side could enter the gateway. The other sides would be barred from crossing over. While a major battle usually ensues outside the tower, many from each coalition do make entry to the tower and get to experience the wonders and horrors as a coalition. Only every 10 levels does the level open up to all 3 coalitions to be combined together, where, naturally, more violent encounters tend to occur. But only one coalition can win and make the crossing. And due to the hostility of the other coalitions, no peace has ever been brokered to give turns to cross without bloodshed. Only the strong can move on. I knew this was going to be a repeated theme. Honestly, it had me kind of excited. Although, I wondered how my coalition would handle learning that I'm a human. And how the humans would handle learning that same truth. I knew for one that I would be no ally of them. I looked down at my hunter tracker kill count humans, 3,137. Yeah, no ally of humans at all. I woke up on a stiff bed with one of Violana's feet on my face and the other on my crotch as she was half hanging off the bed, snoring. The first order of business is upgrading this bed to something larger and softer. We were placed in a shared house, and fortunately, it was with a Koth and Jackson. It was a small cheap house, more like a barracks. There was a monetary system on this layer since there were permanent citizens who chose not to move on. Also, there were people born on this layer who chose lifelong careers, but the place still had an atmosphere of a forward-staging base for military exploration and advancement. Sure, they tried to establish a city with entertainment and regular commerce, but when you looked closely, the people wore armor and sold weapons and other things necessary for hunting monsters. True, the first layer had a bit of that as well, but there were schools, restaurants, and even sports. This layer had food stalls and bars for the most part. The entertainment was more of the adult variety, too. They didn't even have a decent bathhouse. Well, I guess it doesn't matter too much. We're here to grow stronger and advance to the next layer by the 4-year mark. However, there was no way I wouldn't go without any creature comforts. So, the first thing I wanted to do was convert our currency to the new credit system they use here and make some purchases. One such purchase will be a store in the business district if I can afford it. Violana stayed in bed since when I moved her feet off of me, she never woke up. I left her a note and caught Jackson and a Koth on my way out. They, too, were heading out for the day and decided to join me. A Koth got as far as the primary city entrance and then broke off to head to the Hunters Guild. All he cared about was training and hunting. Jackson was eager to see what kind of tech the other layers brought with them to this world, and to be honest, I was too. I read the pamphlet while walking and noticed that this world was simply called the second layer. Perhaps it had a name once upon a time, but no one cared to remember it. The best size estimate was that the entire second layer was about half the size of the first layer. "Ooh, let's stop in here," Jackson said, and Harry popped out of my arm with a new shimmering glow about him. He seemed to be floating much easier now. "What is that?" "My new anti-gravity shields," he responded. "I am a genius, you know." "You're not a genius. You're just a robot." "Gah, I am not a robot." "I am." Yeah, radiant blah blah blah. I've heard it all before. Better than being a dum-dum that doesn't know how to put on his pants correctly. I do know how. The butt pockets were on the front, and you had them all the way pulled up before you noticed. He got you there, Zeke. Shut up. Let's just go inside. The store was a gadget and weapon shop. The style buildings in the area were a hodgepodge of what I could only assume were different species building what they knew best. This particular business had electronic sliding doors that were arched and slid upward. The inside was packed with oddly shaped things on shelves, while the weapons were either hanging on the walls or in barrels off to the side. Looking at the barrel weapons gave me the idea that they were good but not great. But technically, much higher grade than anything on the first layer outside super exotic Nexus materials. However, the weapons on the wall were amazing. I even spotted a lightsaber. Of course, I bought it. Welcome to my shop, an elf? Came over and spoke with us. Wait, Elfian, that's the race in the pamphlet. So, this is a real elf, then, cool. He was tall, but not as beautiful as Lord of the Rings made them out to be, nor did he seem haughty. He also had small nose ridges aside from pointy ears and short, wavy brown hair. However, his eyes were pure silver that even glowed slightly. My name is Nav. I see you spotted the energy saber, good choice. I activated the blade, and similar to a lightsaber, the green blade activated. However, it looked more like a sword, like the dark saber the Mandalorians had. It wasn't pure green either, the core, though hard to see past the green, looked to be silver. I was amazed that it didn't give off heat. Can you tell me about it? Oh, and my name is Zeke. Nice to meet you, Zeke. Yes, the energy saber can cut nearly anything on the second layer. It's powered by soul crystal. Is that like a soul battery? Sort of. It is of the same type, but much weaker. I've only ever heard of one person acquiring a soul battery, and I'm told they are rated for several layers above ours. I opened my combat prosthetic to show him the soul battery. Here's my soul battery, and yes, it is rated up to the 5th layer. The man's eyes nearly bugged out as he marveled at the real thing. Then it is true. There are at least 5 layers, then. 6 that I know of. And the people I met from the 6th layer said they had a means to the 7th. You met people from higher layers? How? Long story, but it involved my death. Now, how much for this saber? After some time discussing the cost and converting our gold and silver to credits, which was handy since he was a tech shop and could do it for us, I bought the saber for 500 credits. He gave me a discount for granting him knowledge and the chance to see a real soul battery. I even let him touch it. I also browsed around a bit more, but ultimately didn't buy anything else. Jackson, however, had 2 shopping carts full of gadgets and scraps and was excitedly chatting with Harry about what they could take apart and build. I left Jackson and Harry to their shopping and decided to also visit the Hunters Guild. Ever since upgrading my arm with the soul battery, Harry's range could easily cover the entire city and living districts, so I wasn't worried about leaving him behind. As I followed the map of the city, which, with a quick scan from the pamphlet I now had pulled up in my HUD for easy navigation, I noticed all the different species and tried to reference them to the names and descriptions. I knew what the tobnobs looked like, but matching the rest took a bit to sort out, mostly due to various clothes and cloaks. However, I worked out the size differences and other features quickly to know what was what. The Zabines were the most interesting species. They were humanoid in shape but, on average, taller than both humans and Elfians. However, their head was some kind of nebulous cloud that sparked with electricity. Inside the cloud were many floating eyes, but not human eyes. These were closer to cat eyes, but glowed brightly. They had the death energy and had innate abilities to fire off death beams. Instead of skills or spells, they had modulations, which basically worked as modifications to their beams in order to produce other effects. They could also modify their own bodies, which made them one of the strongest species physically as well. The Totoke were ice giants and were easily the largest species, at least on our side, but they were definitely the strongest species. Overall, at least according to the pamphlet. I was confident in my strength, but until I tested it, who knew? The Aquarians were sea folk, similar to the Kojin. Lastly, there were the Yasus, a four-armed silver-skin alien species with no hair at all. Their eyes were either green, blue, red, or purple, but thankfully didn't glow. It was strange seeing the difference between common folk born and raised here and beings like us. For one, the gravity is so incredibly strong here, yet the people born under such conditions naturally became strong enough to handle it. But they still seemed frail and weak since they were in this world. If they moved to Earth, they'd be stronger than super soldiers. I should know. As I approached the Hunters Guild, I saw a Koth squaring off with an ice giant, 2 Zabines, and 3 Yasus. They all wore similar gear, which meant that despite most species tending to stick together, these at least recognized the value in diversifying their party for the various species traits. You insulted our buddy here by being in his way. Since you didn't have the common courtesy to apologize, I feel a lesson is in order, one of the Yasus spoke. First of all, your guy ran into me deliberately. Second, I never apologize. And third, weaklings can't dish out lessons. Yeah, that is what I would expect a Koth to respond with. An onion fresh off the boat, think it can speak back to us? Boys, mess him up good. Now that's strange. Why did my translator spell use the word onion? I referred back to the rules for the city, and while there were many rules for general living, there wasn't anything to prevent street fights as long as skills, spells, or strange powers were not used. As long as it was strictly a fist fight, all was good. I used our party chat to relay that information to a Koth, because I knew he didn't bother learning the rules. I got a mental smirk in reply, but I knew he was okay with the arrangement. Then he told me to butt out. But there are 6 of them. And they're all seasoned hunters on the second layer. I know we got a huge leap in Astra before coming here, but I'm sure 6 versus 1 is not good odds. I don't care. I can handle this on my own. Okay, good luck. Tag me in if you need me, I'm just right behind you. All I got was a grunt in response. However, he got an ice giant for a response. The ice giant moved far quicker than I would have expected, but that's just because of old folklore from Earth. I have to remember that these species arrived here from the first layer, which meant they were marginally intelligent and strong. In the blink of an eye, the ice giant arrived in front of a Koth and swung his massive fists down for a crushing blow. While skills, spells, abilities, and aura were not allowed, I noticed that soul arts were. At least some of them were. We couldn't use weapons, which probably meant the soul weapon was off the table as well. A Koth utilized the soul body art of fortification and caught the fists, however, both Sabines had moved to his right and left and dashed in quickly for a free body shot. A Koth let go of the giant's fists and took a step back to catch both fists by the wrist. Then, tugging quickly, he threw them off balance, causing them to slam into each other hard. While they were dazed, by virtue of being on this layer meant they surely had tough durability and recovery. A Koth empowered his body with tremendous astra and did a 360 horizontal kick to each of their nebulous heads, which turned out to be more solid than one would presume, and he knocked them both out. In the time it took to take those 2 out, the ice giant and the other 2 Yasus that didn't speak had moved in again, and this time a Koth didn't have enough time to respond. The ice giant leaped high into the air to vault over the downed Sabines and was coming down quickly with a Superman punch. A Koth tried to back up again but found one of the Yasus behind him about to land a devastating blow to his back. He had the choice of either twisting out of a critical strike to his back, leaving him wide open to a critical strike from above, or moving forward to dodge both. The problem was that other Yasus who didn't speak were also dashing forward and in the process of a roundhouse kick, which would allow him to barely miss his own companions. Then, there was the supposed leader of their group, the last Yasus. He wore a different color badge on his outfit than the others, and I assumed it was of a higher hunter rank. While most leaders would let their companions do their dirty work, this one seemed poised to jump in as well if needed. A Koth was truly in a predicament. Then a Koth did something I never would have guessed or imagined he was capable of. I always thought of him as a mindless brute, but I kept forgetting that he was cunning and authoritative. He led his own group of bandits for a while, after all. A Koth twisted and leapt to the left while slamming his hands together in a clap. But it wasn't just a clap. He manipulated fortification on the air, not just the ground, and forced the space he was just in to rush together from all sides. Effectively, he brought all three foes crashing into each other even quicker than they were supposed to be able to move. The shockwave of all three of their attacks caused them all to be blasted aside. They weren't exactly out for the count, but they were down right then. Their leader rushed in, and a Koth caught the fist, twisted it behind the back, and then kicked out his leg. I could see that a Koth struggled with the strength of the Yasus, but his technique was far superior in manipulating joints. Before a Koth could get a word in for accepting a surrender, the ice giant, who made a remarkable recovery, grabbed him by the back of the neck and pulled hard to break a Koth's grip on his leader. A Koth, while falling backward, grabbed a hold of the giant's wrist and then kicked his legs off the ground to rise upside down and wrap around the giant's arm. With another push with fortification, he launched himself downward to topple the massive behemoth. And then, a second later, a Koth was on top, landing punch after punch until I saw the ice giant's body start to crack. I moved so fast that everything seemed to stand still. I caught a Koth's fist as he was pulling back for another devastating blow. With one hand, I held back his punch. The Yasu's leader saw the struggle and visible strain on a Koth's face as he tried to put all his considerable power into breaking free of my grasp. But then he saw my easygoing, calm face. Like a kitten casually holding back a raging storm. Enough, a Koth. You win, I said. With an angry jerk, he pulled his hand away from mine, but I let him go since he wasn't aiming for the ice giant anymore. Then a Koth stormed off down another road, the audience that accumulated parting out of his way. Like a Koth, I will not apologize for his behavior. You were clearly in the wrong and decided to bully someone you thought was weaker than yourselves. I will, however, apologize for the lengths he went to teach you this lesson. I bent down and used the skill healing, which works great for deep inside damage, and then followed up with mend wounds, to heal the cracks. Now, leader of this party, tell me your name. I am Lars Ko. And you will be sorry for this offense, the Yasu stuttered as tears began to flow down his face. My father will. I don't care about your father. I unleashed my aura. Now, I know aura usage within city limits is forbidden. But if I unleash it only towards one person, then it is his word against mine. And I have witnesses who say he and his party started this beef. And also said witnesses will not feel the effects of my aura. Oh, God, he soiled himself. That stinks. The name is Zeke. Feel free to report me to your father, I said as I walked toward the door of the Hunters Guild. But I don't think he really heard me as he continued to piss and shit himself while frozen in fear staring at the spot I was previously. This Hunters Guild was vastly different from the first layer. For starters, the first floor did have several windows off to the side where one could speak with a representative. However, the rest of the floor was a tavern. Booze and food were constantly delivered to tables. The job boards were on the second floor, and there were no other floors. Nothing was separated by rank. There were hallways blocked by a few doors in the back, which, for the moment, I didn't know what they led to, but I was sure I'd find out eventually. It's like the standards of the first layer were tossed out the door when the new residents discovered they were on another world, and it is part of some unknown game called the layers. What is the end goal? Why keep moving up? Some obviously love the power and will struggle to move on, but many seem to simply settle here, and the societal structure reflects that defeated attitude. If it wasn't for the non-blessing users, or the equivalent of a blessing, then this city might have fallen completely. Now I understand why the rules are in place. This city is teetering on the verge of collapse. I approached one of the booths, where an attendant was waiting patiently for anyone who needed their services, although they truly looked bored. This woman was also a Yasu's, but was far more pleasant than what we encountered outside. Welcome, Kojin traveler. My name is Yue. How may I help? I saw her glance at my hunter tracker wrist device, which meant that I was a Kojin to her even though I had no defining traits. Which makes sense, considering some Kojin like a Koth could reverse their transformation all the way to the point of looking human. And considering actual humans are the enemy, this was a positive thing for me. Also, now that I think of it, I didn't see hunter tracker devices on any of the other species wrists, which meant Kojin was more advanced, at least in one area. Go team! Hi, Yue, I'm Zeke. I'm just off the boat? I know you radiate strong energy, but you don't have one of our hunter badges yet, she cut me off. I really hated that, but at the same time, it did save time. Ah yes, I'm new here. What do I need to do to register? For the Kojin, all you need to do is present your hunter tracker and then have a reading of your Astra. This will place you in the new ranking system. Would you like me to explain the new ranking system? Yes, please. Okay, well, we grant badges based on energy levels. Energy levels, of course, correspond to whatever type of energy each species uses. For the Kojin, it is Astra. We use a star system. She went on to explain the full system and I was flabbergasted. I needed to have Harry draw me a diagram to just understand it. Layer 2 Hunter Ranking. Badges. 1 star. 2 star. 3 star. 4 star. 5 star. 6 star. Energy. 3K, 3.9K. 4K-5.9K. 6K, 7.9K. 8K, 9.9K. 10K, 14.K. 15K, 22.9K. Is this right? Yes, at least according to the explanation. We seem to be in the top echelon of this layer already. Yeah, that is crazy. I mean, granted, we have some room to grow, but honestly, will it take 4 years? I bet we will shatter this ranking system within the current year. At least with our explosive growth tendencies. While that was true on the previous layer, we cannot assume that is the case on this new layer. Plus, even if progression is slow like it would be for everyone else, you're so far ahead that you'll naturally advance above the current system. Just be happy. I will, but technically, there could be people several thousands of Astra or energy above us still. Maybe we should be more careful. Says the guy that taunted a noble and his father. You saw that? Clearly idiot. I dismissed our mental chat and wondered if I had made a mistake. Seeing these numbers boosted my confidence quite a bit, but they also showed me that it was still possible for some to be stronger than me. Only time will tell. I first presented my hunter tracker, which allowed them to scan my deeds. They were surprised at the number of humans I killed. Pleased was one emotion that flickered across their faces, but surprise was the greater emotion. How? It was a question probably at the top of their minds. But for my ranking purposes, my platinum 3-star ranking was noteworthy. Next, they had me press my palm to a scanner that felt very familiar to a security palm scanner back on Earth. Only this one supposedly measured the energy within our bodies. Being over 16K as a newcomer just off the boat shocked them beyond anything they could comprehend. He's even stronger than the other Kojin that came in earlier. What? Let me see. Wow, you're right. The last one was over 8K, but this one is nearly double. How is this possible? The scanner must be broken, said another attendant from another window over. Use mine. I pressed my palm to the new scanner and got the exact same result. Which I proudly wore on my face as a smug grin. Hiding my strength has its time and day, but that day is not today. This new attitude made me question when things changed. Before arriving on Driotis, now known as the first layer, I went from confident to scared to confident again. And as time passed, years really, that confidence only grew as I won each battle. Nevertheless, despite the dangers and pain that were involved, I came out the victor eventually. Even death didn't stop me. So, am I being too confident? Too smug? Probably. This is only day 2 in this world, and I'm already feeling like I own the place. Pride cometh before the fall. A passage from the Bible that, honestly, might be very relevant right now. I can say again that time will only tell, but that actually seems like poor planning. Yes, I've grown too confident. And these tests only serve to boost my ego. I'll accept the badge ranking because it'll thwart needless squabbles in the future, but I fear it won't keep the truly powerful off my back or that of my companions. All I probably have done is mark them for greater trouble. Technically, a Koth did that first, but I stepped in and made things worse. Damn it, hindsight. Please wait here. I need to notify the guildmaster for your badge, Yue said before rushing off into a backroom. Moments later, she came back out and asked me to follow her. Once inside the backroom, the guildmaster greeted me. Good day, sir. My name is Harkle. He was a Zabine, but the nebulous cloud was parted to reveal an actual face. The features of the face were plain. The skin was red, and he had no hair or eyebrows, but otherwise had the same features as a human. Hi, I am Ezekiel Connery, but my friends just call me Zeke. Nice to meet you, Zeke. Now, if I may, I will restore my biosphere. I can only reveal my real face for so long, you see. Then the clouds drew back over his face, and the many eyes looked at me. If I hadn't seen his real face, I might have been creeped out by the new display. Zeke, it seems your party is extremely strong. I haven't met the other two yet, but if yours and Akotha's energy levels are as high as our tests suggest, your group is very strong for first layers. Yes, we accomplished many great feats, including wiping out the entirety of the Monster King's forces, and the Monster King himself. I didn't bother to say how many Monster Kings I ended up killing in the end. I doubted any of the latter ones were as strong as that very first one anyway. Wow, that is quite the accomplishment. We know of the histories of every species within our coalition, and while many things are vastly different, we all had the same starter layer rules. That is to say, we all had a version of a Monster King and his elite forces to battle with. Makes sense. Did anyone else ever accomplish our feat? None in my lifetime, and I'm almost 1,000 years old. However, there are legends from some of our worlds that had one or two that did kill the Monster King but not his entire species, he chuckled. You're truly fascinating. I also hear you're in possession of a soul battery. Is this correct? How did you hear about that? I just came from Nath's place? Yes, well, we have great communication equipment due to the Tobnob's superior technology from the rest of the first layer worlds. Nath was on the wire bragging within seconds of you leaving his shop. You'll find much advanced tech. Although seeing your arm there, I suspect you have far superior tech already. Previously, I was going to hide that I'm human. It wouldn't be difficult since the system labeled me as a human hybrid anyway. But this line of discussion could be a good segue into revealing my truth to a powerful leader in the coalition and getting him on my side early. It might save me some heartache later, but I needed to ease into it. Yes, well, you see. I am a unique case among the Kojin. I'll tell you the entire story, but I ask only that you hear me out and don't cast judgment until you understand the full story. Can you agree to that? Yes, I will agree to that since you had the highest rank possible among the Kojin before coming here. But first I want to know, are you a divine blessing user? And what about your party? Incredible. To learn such secrets even before stepping foot upon our land. Typically, we help talented people push for Soul 3 by the time we are willing to accept them into the advancement party to cross over. Until I find myself a suitable replacement, I have held off on crossing. But I do hope to cross this next time. We just needed a few more powerful people. I understand. Before I tell you my tale, I want to know everything about the humans. I'll leave that answer for my explanation of my past. But please, indulge me? Very well. Humans appear similar to Kojin or Aquarians when they're able to fully reverse their transformations. In essence, they look like you. But they use a unique version of the system. They use mana for energy. and have access to what is known as the shop. Apparently, they can buy things from this shop, which includes skills, items, food, and just about anything really. Their skills are different from your skills. Kojin skills are mostly by touch, whereas your spells are ranged. That isn't true for humans. They can do either easily enough. It all depends on the type of skill they take. Some of the most powerful humans love a skill called Life Orb. They can create extra lives based on the number of orbs they can conjure each day. If a user has 12 orbs, they can come back to life that many times. Aside from that, they have a very group mentality. They build armies and move together as one when they decide to advance. Otherwise, they move in large groups, called battalions, which can have around 100 members each, with the top 10 being elite. Obviously, this makes them very dangerous. Seems like the downside would be that they progress slower than other typical hunter parties. You are correct. But while they advance slower, they advance many at the same pace. Every crossover cycle usually ends up with us fighting the Scalian Coalition. But when the Tarian Coalition does enter the fray, it is usually a lost cause for us. Only those evil demons and their minions tend to be willing to challenge them. I sense you're hesitant to tell me something. I want to move on for this next crossover, and obviously, I'm looking for more powerful candidates to push for it. I already have 15 full parties, all at the Soul 3 point, and we hope to get everyone to Soul 4 within the next 4 years. However, the humans are projected to be pushing for the same goal this year. It will be the first time that we also challenge them. And I'm not confident yet. Well, I can confidently say that my party wants to push for this crossover. We were fine on the first layer to grow rapidly, but also to grow over a long period of time. It was our home. But this place isn't home. And knowing the deadlines, I just can't see us wanting to stay here even longer than 4 years. I'm very glad to hear that. But I think it is time you told me that story. Very well. Let me just say that I came from a world that isn't flat. Just as the sun is round, so too was my world. It was a sphere, and it was located in a universe where space is filled with other planets, suns, and other non-biological things, like dust clouds. My world was not a part of the layer system at all. In this world, we didn't have magic, monsters, or even different species of intelligent life. We had animals, but while some were dangerous, they weren't on the level of monsters. My arm is an example of the technology we developed. We could also fly through the air on giant machines called planes. One day, a magical red circle opened beneath me, and the next thing I knew, I was in the Kojin homeworld. Not only that, but I was in the lair of a very confused-looking monster king. I proceeded to tell him the rest of the story on how I became a blessing user and that Astra was very much my energy type. Then I got to the real point of reveal. Going back to my home world. My world was full of humans. But not the same humans as your enemy. You're telling me you're human? But not from the same world as those humans. Yes, and I'm not even fully human anymore. I was experimented on and became what is known in my world as a werewolf. Basically, I can transform into a giant wolf, similar to what the Kojin can do, but my version is far more dangerous. But with that said, I am on the Kojin's side and now this coalition's side. I have no love for humans. I guess that would explain how you have so many human kills already on your hunter tracker. Nifty equipment, that is. We've never been able to replicate it. I heard it was a specialized rune equipment created by a very rare divine blessing. It allows the creation of new units, but without that machine first created by a blessing, it is unlikely to be possible for replication. So, I've been told. Well, I will keep your secret. Do not tell anyone else. And should it come out, I'll back you. But I do believe your ability to transform should dissuade most people. Harkle then pulled out a badge and handed it to me. You're officially a 6-star hunter. Congratulations. Thank you. My mate and best friend should be coming here soon. Just to let you know, my mate was a princess of Lycia. She's got an attitude. Good luck, I said while grinning. He groaned, knowing full well the temperaments of Lycaons. No. I'm going hunting. We need to get stronger and test ourselves. We're in a new world. We need to hunt. A Koth shouted at Jackson. Jackson simply crossed his arms, before shouting back, we're not ready yet. We need intel, upgraded equipment, and time to adjust to this world's gravity. I know we are all feeling a bit sluggish, well, except maybe Zeke, but even you, a Koth, are not as strong as you think you are. We need to train and let our organs adapt. Plus, like I said, I have a lot of new gear to upgrade and forge. I'll need at least 3 weeks. I, for one, want a break. And I'm missing a lot of my favorite shops, which means we might need to open them ourselves. This town could use a hot spring, a restaurant, and live music. Seriously, what is with this place? Violana grumbled. Fine, you all sit around. I'll go hunt by myself. Hold up, I raised my hand to halt a Koth from walking off. How about this, I'll go hunting with a Koth. You two look into opening a business, which we'll start with one first, and then once that's done, you can train or forge whatever. Sounds great. Let's go, Vel, Jackson said, turning to leave. Violana gave me a quick kiss and jogged to catch up with Jackson. Well, let's go see what lies on the other side of the gate, I said to a Koth. Fine, he replied and rose off the ground by about 10 feet and then flew toward the gate. I shook my head before doing the same thing. I had seen other people flying around occasionally, so I knew it wasn't frowned upon. When we arrived at the wall, though, the gate guards motioned for us to land. Hello, hunters, the Kojin said. He was a lionkin, with a white mane. Unlike Telvern, this one didn't have anything wrong with his legs, and he was far larger, with way more muscles. Behind him was an Aquarian who, judging by his appearance, was a shark man. He, too, was jacked. I hadn't summoned my Lycan nano power suit armor yet, so I still had on my cloak over my normal attire. I opened the cloak to reveal my hunter's badge. Ah, a 6-star hunter and a 5-star hunter. Since we've not met, you must be new here. I'm impressed with your ranks. Normally, you need a full team to hunt, but your rank, he pointed at me, gives you the opportunity to hunt solo if you want. So, we're good to let you two go. But you should at least take a map and a monsterpedia. You'll find the monsters here are quite different than back home and way more nasty. He handed us a book and a map. I gave them to Harry, who exited my arm, and he started to scan them. Wow, has Dryotis changed that much? It's been a few hundred years since I've been there, but we didn't have that kind of technology. It changed a little, mostly because of me and another friend of mine. But I'm sure it hasn't changed that much since then. But, if you've been here for that long, why not move on? I started a family here, but now that they've all grown, me and the missus might go on the next push. If we think we have the numbers to make the climb, that is. Well, we plan on making the climb, so if there is ever a time, it'll likely be it, I said. Confident, I like that. But do some hunting first, and then see if you're still that confident. If you are, then maybe I'll prepare my speech to the wife, he said, chuckling. The shark man stepped up. Maybe when we're off duty, we'll go hunting with you sometime. We know the best spots. If you hunt on occasion, why be guards as well? There's an exclusive officers' club, and one way to get in is to serve as guards for the city. There are other ways, too, but we don't have the money or talent, the lionkin replied. Anyway, good hunting. We nodded and took to the skies. There was no need to open a gate when we could just fly over it. Harry had the map already pulled up on my HUD. A Koth, hold up. I flew down to the ground, removed one of the 4 treasures I bought from the Soul Realm, and shoved the beacon into the ground. Then, I covered it with grass. This beacon was a transportation beacon. It came as a 4-pack and would allow teleportation from anywhere back to this location. If I used another, I would have the mental option of choosing which location. I could also teleport anything within 10 yards of myself. So, when it came time to return, a Koth and I could simply teleport back. The last of my treasures was an inheritance compass. Starting on the second layer and going up, hidden locations could grant great power, items, or knowledge if found. The compass would make finding those locations much easier. I would check the compass periodically, but I wanted to focus mostly on hunting and not dying for our first time out, especially since we were down 2 people. Once we land and engage our prey, I would summon Farah so that we'd have at least 3 of us. I won't count Harry as a 4th. As we were flying, I was stunned at the terrain. The grass was green, but that was the only normal thing. The few trees we saw were flower trees. Like instead of leaves, there were flowers. The bark was blue, green, or yellow, depending on the type of tree. The trees weren't nearly as large as Andreotis, but they were still larger than most on Earth. I never spotted any rivers, lakes, or even ponds, but there were large areas of land with jutting rocks, almost like spikes scattered everywhere. We could also see signs of many battles, whether against monsters or possibly even other coalitions. I know mountains are separating the territories, but I'm sure all sides have found ways into each other's territories. After flying for 10 minutes, we spotted our first monster, and what a monster it was. It looked like a dragon but with fur instead of scales. Also, it was massive. For the moment, it was preoccupied with eating something too mangled to make out, but as we approached, it suddenly snapped its head in our direction. "I can feel its power from here," a Koth said. I was too stunned to respond. The eyes were larger than my werewolf form. I used Appraiser's Oculus. Name: Elder Flame Kerrigan. Energy: 120,000. Aura: Ethereal Blue. Damn, that's a lot of energy. I referenced the Monsterpedia and saw that this particular monster is recommended to have a full raid party of 5 and 6-star hunters. A full raid included over 25 people. I gave the information to a Koth but didn't get a reply. So, I turned to look at him and saw nothing but empty air. Then I looked down and saw him rocketing toward the giant beast, with jets of flame shooting out of his feet. He formed a flaming spear and used one of his explosive skills to launch it. Damn it, that moron. The spear struck the aura of the monster and sizzled out with hardly a spark, and then the next thing I knew, there was a beam of fire heading my direction. I flew quickly out of the way but still felt the heat scorch my skin. I lost sight of a Koth but noticed his earpiece was still registered with my HUD. When the fiery breath attack ended, I saw a smoking, charred form hovering some distance away. "Hey, you alright?" I spoke to him on comms. "Yeah. I have a flame immunity, or so I thought. But that fire still caused much damage. I lost an arm. I don't think we can fight this thing." "You think?" "If you had waited, I would have told you we were short about 23 people." The monster jumped into the sky to try and bite a Koth, and he quickly burst away on another jet of flames. We flew for a while until we landed next to a forest, where we finally found some water. It was a small lake, and a Koth took no time to enter and wash his burnt skin and ash away. I used my best healing skills on him, but it still took an hour for his arm to regrow. While we waited, I felt a presence in the forest and turned to see something with more than a dozen red eyes. It resembled a spider but was nearly 20 feet tall and had 4 mouths filled with razor-sharp teeth. I summoned my 2-handed axe in one hand and the hammer scythe in the other. Throwing the hammer scythe caused a sonic boom, but the monster still managed to raise 2 of its arms to intercept. The skills unleashed upon the metal claws of the beast caused the creature to stumble backward, but I was surprised that the arms didn't break. Still, I used that time to close the distance with burst step, followed by acceleration and sonic speed. Then I channeled momentum strike and necrotic strike into the axe and became a whirlwind of spinning slashes beneath the body. I wasn't able to cut all the legs off, but I did split them all open, which gushed out a green fluid of some kind. The wounds began to blacken as dark veins shot up the legs. Before I could get clear of the legs, one of the metal claws struck my shoulder and nearly pierced through the armor. but the armor was powerful and of a higher layer than this world. So, I was merely shoved backward instead. Farah spoke from behind me. I want to fight, too. Go for it, I told her. And with that, she burst forward, also utilizing my skill, burst step, but then used momentum change to leap onto the spider's back. She raked the monster several times, coating herself in the green liquid. I reached out and summoned my hammer scythe back into my hand and returned my axe back into storage. As the spider thrashed about trying to dismount Farah, I burst step again and put all my considerable strength, which was infused with my astra, into a baseball swing. I aimed for a joint where the leg merged with the body, and this time, the arm exploded, and a massive chunk of the side of the beast blew outward in a spray of green blood. The spider fell over, and Farah went for the neck and clamped on for all she was worth as the beast tried to get back on its feet. But it was too late. I was there with another swing of my weapon directly onto its head. Geez, killing even the smaller monsters is a real pain in the ass, I said. Hurry up and store the body. My arm is healed, and I want to kill the next thing we find, Akoth said grumpily. I vanished the body and cast cleaning on Farah and myself before heading over to the lake and washing my face. My cleaning skill was great, but cold water was simply too refreshing to pass up. Then we headed into the woods. In total, we killed 9 more of the spiders, 3 worms, and 1 monster disguised as a tree. Or it was a tree, we weren't sure. I was about to teleport us back when my danger sense skill alerted me to numerous threats. We were suddenly surrounded by what? Humans? They looked human anyway. They had gray uniforms that were not completely unlike Earth's military attire. Luckily, they didn't have guns, but whatever weapons they were carrying weren't the typical sword or axe either. The blades were affixed to poles along the side and glowed with power. Akoth was partially transformed into his bear form, and I was fully covered with my green ethereal flaming armor. So, I knew the enemy was unaware of what I was. Still, I could sense that at least 4 of them were about my energy level, and the rest were about Akoth's level. An energy field popped into view as a dome over the entire location. I felt the connection to my transportation beacon cut off. Great. What do you want? I asked. We're going to take you alive, injured, or dead, one way or another. How you come with us is up to you, their leader stated flatly. He had a mustache, short-cropped black hair, and a dark complexion. Why? Aside from that armor? You're the enemy. That is all the reason you need to know. Now surrender. I cracked my neck. Even if I didn't want to fight, I knew Akoth would, so I just prepared myself. Akoth's response was to fully shift into his bear form, even as I let the werewolf take over. I think they were surprised by my new height and form. I wasn't like any Kojin they knew of, after all. My strength and durability were also far higher than my astral level suggested, but in this form, it skyrocketed. Activating skill boost, dual mind, thought acceleration, sonic speed, stone skin, barrier, life steal, magnify damage, and finally blood raven swarm, which I sent into a group of them. Akoth attacked the first 3 nearest him, with Farah closely behind. I also activated Astra King and Berserker's abilities, letting Rage surge to phase 3. Then, before I jumped into the fray, I unleashed 2 more skills. Taunting Shout and Tyrant. Taunting Shout caused anyone at my level to feel pulled to attack me. Anyone below my level was struck with Tyrant, which caused extreme intimidation and fear. These were veterans of the second layer, so the effects only lasted seconds, but what we could accomplish in seconds was enough to turn the tide of the battle. I moved like a savage beast, relying on my claws instead of weapons. Their energy swords were powerful, but not enough to get through my armor as I shredded them to pieces. I even ripped one guy's arm off and beat someone else with it at one point. The screams and cries of agony didn't last long before one of us would silence them for good. Their leader put up the best fight as he managed to tear open Akoth's side with a decisive strike before kicking him into a nearby tree. Farah bit his arm up to the elbow off, but received a nasty head wound in return. I noticed the man used to reach out and crush one of the orbs floating around him, and his wounds instantly vanished as if he had never been injured. The other three of equal energy levels were struggling to hold me back as I activated skill after skill, but they, too, had orbs and kept healing. But they could only do that for so long before they ran out. Then, one of them activated a skill that coated me in a sticky substance that glued me to the floor. I pushed myself forward, but it kept stretching and getting stronger. Then they jumped onto my back to try and pry my helmet off. They were having problems injuring me due to the armor, so I assumed this was their solution. While Akoth was injured, had less energy than the leader, and was outnumbered, he seemed to have more combat skills than all of them. His blessings were divine and very explosive. His raw power overwhelmed his foes, with the exception of the leader, but even he was on the back foot. I used Heal Familiar whenever I saw Farah take damage, but I was mentally scrolling through my list of options to get me out of this sticky goop. Getting desperate, I used Raged Fist with Sunder and blew the ground beneath me into a massive crater. This forced the goop to be freed from the ground, but it still clung to me. But cleaning was rather effective, and shucking that nasty stuff off of me. I roared and charged with incredible speed at the first guy closest to me. He was stunned and on his back from the sudden explosion and couldn't react in time before I dug my claws into his chest and bit off his head. Let's see if those orbs help you now. When he didn't magically come back to life, I turned to my next prey. Panting, the leader of the human squad faced off alone against Akoth, Farah, and me. For filthy Kojin, I'm surprised at your combat experience. But, we humans have far more tricks up our sleeves, he said while tossing a new colored orb to the ground. It burst with light, and then all his people slowly rose back to their feet. Their wounds closed and, in a few cases, regrew entire limbs. Only the one guy without a head stayed dead. The man looked at the one dead soldier and tisked. Guess the Orb of Resurrection has its limits. Good to know. My stamina was still topped off due to Berserker, but my rage skill was exhausted, and I felt my total combat effective Aster begin to drop. So, I opted for Intimidation. I'm guessing you want us to kill them again? My voice was gruff due to my werewolf jaw, but the words were clear enough. Huh. No. Unfortunately, while I can bring them back and restore their health, I can't restore their mana or skill timers. Plus, our buffs are running out. No, you lot bought yourselves your freedom for today. My name is Red Star 1, Chromanson of the 7th Division. Remember it well, because next time we'll be ready. Now, what are your names? Did he say human? One of Chromanson's soldiers asked. What you on about, Zeke? Akoth asked. I thought you were a Kojin traveler? Dude, I explained to you my true origins like 3 times. When? Wait, was it during one of your many ramblings I tuned out? Which ramblings did you tune out? All of them. Then yes. Akoth scoffed. Whatever. Hey! Chromanson shouted. What do you mean you're human? What planet is Earth? We have no known planets we occupied before our transfer to the layers. So, you remember your history before the layers. That is good to know. Do you know of a solar system called Sol? 9 planets, well, 8 if you don't count Pluto. The 3rd planet in the solar system supported life. I believe you're using a translation skill, but yes, we do know of Sol. That world had a team sent to it that never returned. Look at me, reminiscing of my old days as a history teacher. Wait, how old are you? Wasn't humans one of the first species to arrive on the 2nd layer? Yes, we were. I'm quite old, but for a long time was content with teaching and training the next generations. Orbs are a gift of immortality if used correctly. But all that changed when filthy Kojin killed my family. Now, I'm out for blood. But I must question why a human is running with the Kojin. Then you'll die alongside them. You should have chosen orbs instead of that ridiculous beast-type transformation. It may seem strong at first, but orbs have a far greater growth potential. You will not win next time. Then Chromanson and his entire team suddenly vanished. Not with invisibility, my skills and abilities would detect that. They used something akin to teleportation, similar to my transportation beacons. That's good. He thinks I'm using the same shop system as them, so they will underestimate me even more next time. My understanding of humans obviously came from the experience of being one, even if we're two different types of humans with vastly different cultures. Our natures don't change. Plus, if what he said was true, my type of human came from them originally during some kind of expedition that never returned. That might also be why they conquered many planets and were now transferred into the system of layers. For what purpose? No one seems to know yet. But maybe one day, Earth people will also join the layer system. Who knows? That said, human nature is to learn, adapt, and overcome. Giving them time to analyze the battle and learn our strengths, weaknesses, and operating styles could be our downfall. Obviously, we'll do the same in return, but they don't know that. They have preconceived ideas of how Kojin hunts. Ugh. A Koth kicked a nearby tree, sending cracks through its incredibly dense bark. They got away. Let's head back. Get the others and study their battle tactics. Then, we'll invade them. What? You want to attack them? Yeah, waiting for them to ambush us again is stupid. I say we bring the fight to them. It would be the least expected action, and they won't be prepared. So what? You want to spy, plan a trap, and ambush them in their forest. Stupid. It could take weeks. No, we'll attack their city directly, I said, rubbing my hands together with an evil grin. Now that is stupid. I'm in, Akoth replied with an evil chuckle. Zeke, now I know you lost your mind, Jackson said. Please. I know you're always down for a little mayhem. It would be a good opportunity to test the upgrades to the ship and my guns. Violana folded her arms. I can't believe I'm going to be the voice of reason here. But attacking an entire human city? Are you guys nuts? It'll be a coordinated strike. We'll do long-range reconnaissance first. Even have Harry hack their systems and sneak in. Then we'll shut down their defenses before we strike. The goal will be to do as much destruction as possible. Then we'll leave a nice statement for Chromasin. With luck, he'll get in a lot of trouble for failing to capture us and allowing for a counterattack, I reasoned with her. Plus, with these transportation beacons, we can instantly escape. And you never know, maybe we can help free some of the other races to at least sow a bit of chaos while we're at it. I don't know. Honey, it'll be fine. Hold my beer. I got this. Hold your own damn beer. No, that's a saying. And I'm saying, get your own beer. Also, get one for me, too. Are you sure you don't want wine? No, the wine here tastes awful. We need to introduce this world to real booze. Speaking of which, starting a business here will be more difficult than we imagined. If we wanted a simple store that sold armor and weapons, it isn't a big deal. But any business that competes with this private officers club is not so easy to do. Probably since they get their recruits to the guard via membership. I'm assuming we'd have to put on the same kind of restrictions. Do we know what they offer at this club? I asked. Music, expensive drinks, food, and something called narcotics? I don't know what that is. Drugs, I muttered. If they have that, then they might also offer other unsavory things. Harry, can you infiltrate this club and find out everything going on? Ugh. Fine. I'll send one of my bodies to do it. One of your bodies? Yeah, I made several more, including a fully functional Iron Man suit. No way. Way. Do-a-dee. Do-a-dee. What is going on? Violana butted in on our bro moment. You guys sound like idiots. Ouch, that's harsh. I should spank you. Is that a promise? Jackson and Harry both made puking noises. Alright, alright. Everyone knows what to do. Study that battle of Coven I had. Harry, show me everything you've made. And this is MK17, known as the Beast. Essentially, while nano-armors do provide versatility and transformation, they lack the inherent durability of a true solid metal. This suit of armor does allow for transformations, but only with 4 set animal types because it is not a nano suit. The transformations are. I get it, and I'm sure they're all strong for whatever occasion. But what I want to know is, what is that? I asked Harry while pointing at a black and purple armor with strange tentacles on the back. It wasn't just elegant in design that caught my eye. Granted, the sleek black with purple trim was sexy, but there was a power radiating from it that felt odd and alluring at the same time. That is the Reaper, Harry replied. It is a blend between Iron Man, Doc October, and Nightcrawler. Who? Harry's expression on his floating body displayed a shocked, dumbfounded look. How do you not know who those people are? Why would I know them? I'm sure they're some lame cartoon people. What? Lame? Cartoon? Harry shrieked. These are. Whatever, nerd. Look, Captain Picard, Geordi, the android. I tapped on my chin for a moment as if thinking of the name. Right, C-3PO, and that large black alien, TLC, right? And the rest of the away team would stomp your people. That's. Not. Even. Harry started to screech, but then activated a device, and I suddenly fell through a hole in the floor only to land outside on my ass. What the hell? Did he just kick me out of his lab? When did they even acquire this building anyway? Zeke, what are you doing? Jackson asked, staring down at me. I pissed off Harry, and he teleported me out. Let me guess, you mixed up Star Wars with Harry Potter or something, right? Something like that. I mean, how does he not see that they're the exact same story? 2 orphan boys, raised by relatives, grow up too. Jackson, I don't care. Help me up. I cut him off and held up a hand. He took it and hoisted me up to my feet. I just can't believe he short-circuited and booted me out. Yeah, he tried booting me like that once, but I own this building now and have total administrative access. I'm sure Harry can work around that, but he hasn't yet. You should have seen how worked up he got when I told him Indiana Jones was completely useless in Raiders of the Lost Arkansas. Dude started displaying an error 404 not found on his mini display, hee. It was priceless. I see. I have no idea what that is, but okay. Anyway, what are you up to? I went over that video you provided and have some counter-tech ideas I need to upgrade Molly with. Molly, his battlewagon turned flying fortress, was always evolving. I wouldn't be surprised if it became a fully functional spaceship soon. Well, don't forget to register with the Hunters Guild. We will be heading out soon. Already did. I'm a 5-star. Anyway, got to get to work. Oh, and Zeke, you should upgrade your arm with some of the new tech we discovered. You'd be amazed. Yeah, I'll look into it. Laters. I would look into it, but after the planned raid. If I did it now, I might not resurface for a week. Instead, I went shopping. The trip and scouting would be tonight. Once we had a full plan in place, then we would attack the humans. I knew I'd want various things for my prosthetic arm, but since I didn't know what technology was useful yet, I decided to shop for more useful things for this mission. Mainly, I wanted skill scrolls and weapons from the second layer. I mean, I'm confident in my own creations and, of course, my soul weapon, but I wanted to know what this layer had to offer. Welcome to my humble shop, the Zabine said. My name is Zeltan, and this, he gestured all around, is the enchanted weapon. He meant the shop, not just the items within. Nice, I replied and removed my hammer scythe. Got anything better than this? His eyes lit up. What a magnificent looking weapon. He tried to take it from my hands only to drop it. The head hit the ground, and he barely held up the hilt. Oof, so heavy. Why the weight and size? I'm very strong, and I thought a big, heavy weapon would be great against monsters. I shrugged. I see your point, but you put a lot of money into this creation. Powerful materials, runes, and even a core. Dangerous but effective. Let's see, I can beat the materials and the runes, but I'm out of cores, so you'd have to obtain that yourself, but even without it I could still create something a bit more powerful than this. Although, I'm not sure it would be worth the cost. However, this axe, he walked into the back and came out with a massive double-bit axe. The blade on each side was wide, dark metal, and glowed red along the edges. I liked the axe's size and weight, and it felt great in my hands. The back end was obviously weighted to counterbalance, but the grip was amazing. It was almost like leather in texture, but soft like cloth. Surprisingly, it clung to my palms, and that was when I felt the magic of the runes. This weapon wasn't thick enough for a core to host its own power, but I had plenty enough coursing through my veins. But this power felt like fire and lightning, enhancing my strength and my skills channeled through it. It has a recall rune on it, in case you want to hurl it at your enemies. It flies really well. That's good to know. I gave it a few test swings and then asked how much. After paying, I headed to the scroll shop. I was disappointed because it appeared that most of the valuable scrolls were either gone or the shop just didn't sell anything good. I found one scroll, though, that I wanted. Identification. Name. Telekinesis S2 R1. Description. Lifting objects with your mind costs Astra. Proportional to size and mass at a 1:10 ratio. I walked away, floating a coin in the air and whistling a happy tune. Technically, small tricks like this could be done by manipulating my aura, but this was true telekinetic power. A long-past fantasy of mine just became true. Dialana stepped out of the registration office for a new business she wanted to open when suddenly she found herself surrounded by Lycaons. The biggest of them was in full transformation and felt powerful. Seeing the 5 stars on his badge meant he was at least as strong as she was. But the 4 others, also being a mix of 3 and 4 stars, meant she was still overwhelmingly outmatched. If this is some kind of initiation ritual for Lycaons coming to the second layer, you better rethink this plan, Dialana said with clear venom in her voice. All royalty are to present themselves to the Alpha. You have been here long enough to have followed protocol, yet you have clearly ignored your duty. We are here to escort you, Princess. You know who I am, but who are you? I am Jaitakan, Royal Knight. Now come. The reason Jaitakan that I do not need to report to your Alpha is because I already belong to an Alpha currently on this layer. I am a queen, not a princess. Jaitakan clicked his tongue. There cannot be 2 Alphas. We are one clan. There are no problems. My father personally approved of his status. But I imagine that if you want to challenge us on this, your Alpha is burdened with proposing the duel. In person. Until then, I am off limits. What is the name of your king? Ezekiel Conry, 6-star hunter. That evening, we had a tasty meal. I put together steaks and something similar to potatoes using what I could find. Then we were off in the Molly Mobile. On the way, we had to kill more than a dozen flying creatures, and by we, I meant Farah and Akoth, because they were always battle-thirsty. By nightfall, we approached the northwest mountain range that created the barrier between the 2 factions. Due to the thin air, going over the mountain didn't seem possible, so Jackson started a long, boring sequence of deep scans to find what tunnels were there. We knew there had to be some since the humans had found a way through. Going through the mountain tunnel reminded me strongly of that one Lord of the Rings movie, the one with the cave tunnels, obviously. Harry had us watch it recently, and I think it was the first one or maybe the second. Whatever, the point was that I expected to see a large lava monster pop out at any moment, and since monsters were a thing here, it was a concern taken seriously. We made it through without being attacked, and as far as you know, I did not release a tense breath. Zeke? Why are you gripping the back of my chair? You're bending the frame, Jackson asked. Oh, sorry, forget my strength sometimes, I lamely made up an excuse. Anyways, we almost there? Don't act like a child. I've never been here, we're flying with only a vague sense of where to go. We're assuming the layout is similar to the layout on our side. Right. Remember, put us in incognito mode, I replied. You mean invisibility mode? We're not searching for porn. You know about porn? Yeah, unfortunately. Harry downloaded all the data he had from your world's internet onto the mainframe within Molly, and one day, I got a freaking virus, and the ship started moaning out of every speaker. Took me forever to purge the bad data. Your world is sick, Zeke. I laughed uncontrollably for a bit, much to Jackson's annoyance. It took another hour before we saw signs of human territory, and it wasn't good. On our side, we had our fortress city, and outside the walls was mostly natural terrain filled with monsters. Sure, there were some scores of battles when hunters took on powerful monsters. The aftermath lasts a while. But what we were seeing wasn't due to random battles with monsters. They scorched entire forests, evaporated or harvested entire lakes. The humans did what we did best, destroyed everything and sucked whatever was useful out. It wasn't entirely inaccurate to call these lands dead. Their city was on a completely different level of technology than our city. Oh, we had at least one very technologically advanced race within our faction, but their influence was only so much. Humans, being douches, took over their faction. As a result, their influence was absolute, and they had very advanced defenses. However, they were still less advanced than Harry. Harry wasn't just a bit of our Earth's more advanced technology, he was also a divine blessing. Essentially, a living quantum computer. We, or I should say Jackson and Harry, spent the day analyzing their defenses and slowly infiltrating their networks with nanobots and rootkits. They were installing what I thought were viruses, but really weren't, and slowly taking over everything. Then, we began our attack plans.